He didn't just build a casino in the desert. He built a dream so expensive, so dangerous, that it killed him. February 28, 1906, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The air smelled like poverty, sweat, and desperation. In a cramped tenement apartment where Russian Jewish immigrants squeezed their lives into rooms the size of closets, Jenny and Max Siegel welcomed their second child into the world. They named him Benjamin Siegelbaum. But the world would come to know him by a name he despised, a name that meant crazy as a bedbug, Bugsy. Williamsburg in the early 1900s wasn't a neighborhood. It was a battlefield. Irish gangs controlled the north. Italian crews ran the south. Jewish kids were caught in the middle. Targets for everyone, protectors for no one. Young Benjamin learned fast. If you wanted to survive, you couldn't wait for someone to save you. You had to become the thing others feared. By age 14, Benjamin Siegel, never call him Bugsy to his face, had dropped out of school and formed his first gang. But unlike other street punks stealing bread and cigarettes, Benny had vision. He approached pushcart peddlers on New York's Lower East Side with a simple business proposition. Pay me $1, and I'll protect your cart from thieves and vandals. When they refused, and they always refused at first, Siegel would fly into a rage, douse their carts in kerosene, light them on fire, and watch the flames devour their livelihood. Then he'd ask again. They always paid the second time. This wasn't just extortion, it was a masterclass in terror economics. Young Siegel understood something most gangsters never learned. Fear is cheaper than muscle, and loyalty bought with fire lasts longer than loyalty bought with friendship. But Benjamin Siegel wasn't content running protection rackets on street corners. He had bigger dreams, Hollywood dreams, millionaire dreams, emperor dreams. And in 1918, he met the one person who could help him conquer the world. Meyer Lansky was a scrawny Jewish kid with a limp and a brain like a calculator. Benjamin Siegel was handsome, violent, and fearless. Together, they were unstoppable. They called themselves the Bugs and Meyer Mob, and by the time they were teenagers, they were running one of the most ruthless operations in New York City. They hijacked liquor convoys, sold dope and pot on street corners, stole cars, beat rivals to death in alleyways. And when someone needed killing, Bugs and Meyer were the ones you called. But their real genius wasn't violence, it was organization. While other gangs fought turf wars and killed each other over scraps, Lansky and Siegel built alliances. They worked with Italian mobsters like Charles Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, and Vito Genovese. They partnered with bootleggers, bookies, and corrupt cops. They turned chaos into commerce. In the 1920s, Prohibition turned America into the world's largest black market. Alcohol was illegal, which meant selling it was insanely profitable. The Bugs and Meyer mob became bootleggers, smuggling whiskey and rum across state lines, bribing cops, and eliminating anyone who stood in their way. But bootlegging was just the beginning. By the late 1920s, Siegel and Lansky had evolved into something far more dangerous: contract killers. They formed what the press would later call Murder, Inc., a national assassination syndicate that handled hits for crime families across America. Need a rival eliminated? Call Murder, Inc. witness getting ready to testify? Call Murder, Inc. former partner stealing from you? Call Murder, Inc. and Bugsy Siegel? He wasn't just a member. He was one of the founders, one of the chief operators, and by some estimates, he personally murdered over 30 men, not including those he arranged to have killed. On April 15, 1931, Siegel and 3 other gunmen, Albert Anastasia, Vito Genovese, and Joe Adonis, walked into Nuova Villa Tamaro, a Coney Island restaurant, and shot mob boss Joe the Boss Masseria to death while he ate pasta. The murder was ordered by Lucky Luciano and marked the end of the Castellammarese War, a bloody power struggle that reshaped organized crime in America. With Masseria dead, Luciano became the undisputed boss of New York's underworld, and Bugsy Siegel became his most trusted executioner. But Murder, Inc. was getting too much attention. Cops were investigating. Newspapers were publishing names. Witnesses were talking. And when you're a professional killer whose face is becoming famous, it's time to disappear. In 1936, Lansky made a decision. Send Bugsy Siegel west. Far west. to California, where the sun was warm, the cops were lazy, and Hollywood was waiting. Los Angeles in the late 1930s was paradise for a gangster with ambition. While other mobsters stayed in smoky backrooms counting cash, Bugsy Siegel walked into Hollywood like he owned the place, and in many ways he did. He moved into a mansion in Beverly Hills, wore custom-tailored suits, threw lavish parties attended by movie stars, directors, and studio executives. He became friends with actor George Raft, a fellow Brooklyn boy who'd made it big playing gangsters on screen. Through Raft, Siegel met the biggest names in Hollywood: Jean Harlow, Clark Gable, Cary Grant. Harlow became the godmother to Siegel's daughter Millicent. Stars visited his home for cocktails and poker. He dated actresses, including the stunningly beautiful Virginia Hill, a fiery redhead with legs that went on forever and a temper that matched Siegel's own. But beneath the glamour, Bugsy was still a gangster. He wasn't in California to play dress-up. He was there to build an empire. Siegel took over the West Coast's illegal gambling operations, working for Meyer Lansky and Frank Costello. He controlled bookmaking rings, wire services that transmitted horse racing results to illegal betting parlors, and a massive stuff trade route through Mexico. By 1942, the syndicate's wire operation alone was earning them $500,000 a day. He also continued his work as a hitman. When a rival named Harry Greenberg turned informant, Siegel allegedly had him murdered. He was arrested and tried in 1941, but thanks to expensive lawyers and friendly witnesses, including George Raft, he was acquitted. Siegel was living the dream: wealth, fame, power, and Hollywood connections. He had everything a man could want, but it wasn't enough. Because in 1945, Bugsy Siegel heard about a place in the Nevada desert, a dusty, forgotten wasteland called Las Vegas. And he saw something no one else did. He saw the future. In the 1940s, Las Vegas was nothing. A tiny desert town with a few casinos, dusty roads, and tumbleweeds. But it had one thing that made it priceless: legal gambling. In 1945, a Hollywood nightclub owner named Billy Wilkerson started building a luxury hotel casino on the outskirts of town. He envisioned a European-style resort with elegance, class, and sophistication, something Las Vegas had never seen. He named it the Flamingo, after the pink birds he'd seen in Miami. But Wilkerson ran out of money. And that's when Bugsy Siegel walked in with a briefcase full of cash and a promise: "I'll finish this. I'll make it legendary." Siegel didn't just invest in the Flamingo, he took it over. Using threats, intimidation, and mob money, he forced Wilkerson out and became the project's boss. He recruited investors from the syndicate, Meyer Lansky, Frank Costello, Lucky Luciano, and promised them massive profits. But Siegel's vision was bigger than anyone expected. He didn't want a simple casino. He wanted a palace. He wanted opulence, imported palm trees, Olympic-sized pools, trap shooting ranges, 9-hole golf courses, air conditioning in every room, something almost unheard of in 1946. He wanted tuxedo dealers, champagne fountains, and entertainment that would make Hollywood jealous. The original budget? $1.2 million. By the time construction was halfway done, $6 million. Building materials disappeared, contractors overcharged. Workers stole supplies and sold them on the black market. Siegel's girlfriend, Virginia Hill, allegedly skimmed hundreds of thousands. Mob investors started asking questions. "Where's the money going, Bugsy?" But Siegel didn't care. He was obsessed. He spent days at the construction site, screaming at workers, demanding perfection, personally overseeing every detail. He wasn't building a casino. He was building a monument to himself. December 26, 1946, opening night. Bugsy Siegel stood in a black tuxedo with a pink carnation, smiling as Hollywood celebrities arrived. Comedian Jimmy Durante headlined. George Raft, Charles Coburn, and other stars walked through the doors. The Flamingo was stunning. The casino sparkled. The champagne flowed. And then, disaster. A freak rainstorm hit Los Angeles, grounding most of the VIP guests. The hotel rooms weren't finished, so gamblers had to stay at competing resorts. And worse, the casino lost money. High rollers won big and left with their winnings. Dealers were caught cheating. Siegel assaulted a roulette dealer who passed chips to a losing player. By New Year's Day 1947, the Flamingo had lost $500,000. Siegel closed it temporarily to finish construction and stop the bleeding. Back east, the mob bosses were furious. They'd invested over $3 million and seen nothing in return. Rumors spread that Siegel and Virginia Hill were stealing from them, hiding money in Swiss bank accounts. In March 1947, the Flamingo reopened with completed hotel rooms. Business improved. By May, it showed a $300,000 profit. Siegel was vindicated. He'd done it. He'd built the first luxury resort in Las Vegas. But it was too late. The mob had already made their decision. June 20th, 1947, Beverly Hills, 810 North Linden Drive, Virginia Hill's mansion. Virginia was in Paris, having fled after a violent argument with Siegel. But Bugsy was home, sitting on the living room couch with his friend and associate, Alan Smiley. Siegel wore a custom suit. His shoes shined to perfection. He was reading the Los Angeles Times, chatting casually. Outside, hidden in the darkness, an assassin crouched with an M1 carbine rifle. Approximately 10:30 p.m., the first bullet shattered the window. Then came the storm. 9 shots fired in rapid succession. 2 struck Siegel in the head. 1 bullet entered through his right eye and exited through the back of his skull. His eye was blown completely out of its socket and landed 15 feet away on the dining room floor. Alan Smiley dove off the couch, unharmed except for 3 bullet holes through his jacket sleeve. Virginia Hill's cook, brother, and secretary were in other rooms and survived. But Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, 41 years old, handsome, charismatic, the man who'd murdered dozens, survived gang wars, built an empire, and gambled everything on a desert dream, was dead before he hit the floor. The assassin disappeared into the night. Police arrived within minutes. Photographers captured the gruesome scene. Siegel slumped on the couch, blood pooling beneath him, his eye staring up from the floor like an accusation. And here's the darkest part. Within minutes of his death, 3 men walked into the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas and announced they were taking over. Mo Sedway, Gus Greenbaum, and Morris Rosen, all Lansky associates, claimed the casino before Siegel's body was even cold. The takeover had been planned, approved, executed. To this day, nearly 80 years later, Bugsy Siegel's murder remains officially unsolved. No arrests, no convictions, no justice. But theories? There are plenty. Theory number 1, the syndicate hit. The most popular theory, Meyer Lansky and the mob bosses ordered Siegel's execution for stealing and mismanaging the Flamingo. They'd invested millions and lost patience. Lucky Luciano, meeting with mob leaders in Havana, allegedly said about Bugsy, "Him I can't help." Translation, you're already dead. Theory, Shirk 2, the love triangle. Another theory claims Mo Sedway, Siegel's partner in Las Vegas, had Siegel killed. Why? Sedway was allegedly having an affair with Virginia Hill. When Siegel found out, tensions exploded. Some sources claim the shooter was Moose Panza, the lover of Sedway's wife. Theory number 3, Virginia's brother. A third theory suggests Virginia Hill's brother killed Siegel because of his abusive relationship with his sister. Siegel was known for his violent temper, and witnesses reported brutal fights between them. Theory number 4, the rogue hitman. Some believe it was a former rival whom Siegel had beaten and humiliated years earlier. Someone who waited years for revenge and finally pulled the trigger. But here's the truth. It doesn't matter who pulled the trigger. What matters is that every major mob figure in America either knew it was coming or approved it. Siegel had become a liability. He'd lost their money. He'd drawn too much attention. And in the mob, liabilities don't get second chances. On June 26, 1947, Bugsy Siegel was buried in a silver-plated casket at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Hundreds attended. Flowers covered his grave. Newspapers called him the man who built Las Vegas. But was he? For decades, Bugsy Siegel was credited as the visionary who invented modern Las Vegas. Historians called him the architect of Sin City. But in the 1990s, the truth started emerging. The Flamingo wasn't Bugsy's idea. Billy Wilkerson, the original developer, had conceived the European-style luxury resort. He'd bought the land. He'd hired the architects. He'd named it the Flamingo. Siegel didn't invent it. He stole it. Historian Frank Wright stated, It was Bugsy who took over the building when Wilkerson ran short of funds. Bugsy finished it and opened it. So in a real sense, it was Bugsy Siegel's hotel. But another historian, Hal Rothman, argued, Wilkerson had an idea, but he wasn't able to pull it off. The Flamingo he envisioned probably was very different from the one Siegel envisioned. So who deserves credit? Both, and neither. Wilkerson dreamed it. Siegel built it. Badly, expensively, and obsessively. He overspent, mismanaged, and stole. But he also turned a failing construction site into a functioning casino. And after his death, the Flamingo became wildly profitable. The Sands, Tropicana, Caesar's Palace, and dozens more followed, all using the Flamingo as a blueprint. Bugsy Siegel didn't invent Las Vegas, but he proved it could work. He died so that Sin City could live. Today, the Flamingo Hotel still stands on the Las Vegas Strip. It's been renovated countless times. None of the original architecture remains. In 1993, the Oregon building, where Siegel's personal suite once stood, was demolished. The bulletproof windows, the 5 secret escape routes, the hidden ladder to the basement tunnel, all gone. But the name remains. And between the pool and the wedding chapel, there's a memorial plaque to Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. Tourists take photos. Newlyweds walk past it. Gamblers don't even notice. And in New York's Bialystoker Synagogue on the Lower East Side, there's a yahrzeit remembrance plaque marking Siegel's death date. It sits below the plaque for his father, Max Siegel, who died just 2 months before his son was murdered. Every year, mourners say Kaddish for Bugsy, a prayer for the dead, recited for a man who killed dozens. In 2020, the Flamingo opened a steakhouse called Bugsy and Myers, honoring Siegel and Lansky as founders of modern Las Vegas. The 50th anniversary of Siegel's murder in 1997 wasn't commemorated by the Flamingo Hilton. A spokesman said, although he was a founder of this property, he was certainly not a role model. We're talking about a murderer, thief, and rapist. All the things that society shouldn't aspire to be. But by 2000, the resort's employee dining room was named Bugsy's Backroom Cafe. And decades later, Las Vegas embraced its gangster origins as a tourist attraction. The Mob Museum opened. Tours of mob history became popular. Bugsy Siegel's story was told and retold in documentaries, books, and films. Warren Beatty played him in the 1991 film Bugsy, depicting him as a tragic visionary. The character Mo Green in The Godfather, shot in the eye through his eyeglasses, was based directly on Siegel's murder. Las Vegas, the city he gambled everything to build, now generates over $60 billion in annual revenue. It's one of America's most visited cities. Millions flock to its casinos, hotels, and shows every year. And it all started with a gangster's dream, mob money, and a bullet through the eye. Bugsy Siegel married his childhood sweetheart, Esta Krakova, in 1929. They had 2 daughters, Millicent and Barbara. But Siegel was a notorious womanizer, cheating constantly with actresses and showgirls. The marriage ended in divorce in 1946. Despite everything, the murders, the betrayals, the violence, Esta Siegel always insisted her ex-husband was a good man who helped others. His daughters grew up hearing stories of their father, the gangster. Millicent died in 2017. Barbara is still alive. They never spoke publicly about their father's crimes. Friends like George Raft testified on Siegel's behalf during his trials, insisting he was misunderstood. Doc Stacher, a member of the Bugs and Meyer mob, once said, Bugsy never hesitated when danger threatened. While we tried to figure out what the best move was, Bugsy was already shooting. When it came to action, there was no one better. I've never known a man who had more guts. But courage and cruelty aren't mutually exclusive. Bugsy Siegel was both a hero to his friends and a monster to his enemies. He helped Al Capone hide from murder warrants. He executed mob bosses on Luciano's orders. He built Murder Inc. and personally killed over 30 men. He extorted small business owners, ran stuff and pot through Mexico, and corrupted cops across America. And yet, people mourned him. Stars attended his funeral. His grave was covered in flowers. Because Bugsy Siegel understood something fundamental about America. We love our villains almost as much as our heroes, especially when they're handsome, charismatic, and die young. Today, Las Vegas is a $60 billion industry. The Strip glows with neon. Mega resorts tower over the desert. Tourists from around the world come to gamble, drink, party, and forget. But it all started with a mobster's obsession, a girlfriend named after a flamingo, and a construction project that went $5 million over budget. Bugsy Siegel didn't live to see his dream fulfilled. He was murdered 6 months after the Flamingo opened. But his vision, a luxury resort in the middle of nowhere, where vice was legal and glamour was currency, became the blueprint for modern Las Vegas. The Sands, the Tropicana, Caesar's Palace, the Bellagio, the Venetian. Every mega resort on the Strip traces its DNA back to the Flamingo Hotel and the gangster who died for it. Some historians argue Siegel's contribution was overstated, that he simply finished someone else's project. But others say he transformed it, elevating it from a simple casino into a cultural phenomenon. The truth? It doesn't matter. Because whether Bugsy Siegel was a visionary or a thief, a genius or a fool, a builder or a destroyer, he changed Las Vegas forever. And in the end, that's all anyone remembers. They called him Bugsy. He called himself Ben. The mob called him dead. But Las Vegas? Las Vegas called him the beginning. He didn't live to see his empire rise. But every neon light on that strip, every casino that glitters in the desert night, it exists because a gangster once looked at nothing and saw everything. Bugsy Siegel didn't build Las Vegas. He bet his life on it. And when the house finally came for him, he paid in blood. But the city? The city he dreamed of? It's still standing, still shining, still waiting for the next man crazy enough to gamble on the impossible. In 2024, the Flamingo Hotel underwent another renovation. New restaurants, updated rooms, modern amenities. But the memorial plaque to Bugsy Siegel remains, tucked between the pool and the wedding chapel. Tourists walk past it every day. Some stop to read, most don't. The plaque is simple. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, a driving force behind the development of the Las Vegas Strip. No mention of the murders. No mention of Murder, Inc. No mention of the stolen money or the bullet through the eye. Just a sanitized tribute to a man who killed dozens, built a dream, and died for it. Because in Las Vegas, history is whatever makes the most money. And Bugsy Siegel's story? It sells tickets, fills hotels, and keeps the legend alive. The Bialystoker Synagogue in New York still has his remembrance plaque. Every year, someone lights a candle and says a prayer for Benjamin Siegel, a man who broke every commandment but is still mourned like a martyr. And in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, beneath a silver-plated casket and flowers that long ago turned to dust, Bugsy Siegel rests beside movie stars and moguls, criminals and kings. The gangster who wanted to be famous, the killer who wanted to be loved, the visionary who wanted to be remembered. He got his wish, but it cost him everything.